guys? Paulie Malinaji for Paulie TV. This weekend, Anthony Joshua makes his much-awaited return against Jermaine Franklin. Listen, it's a big moment for Anthony Joshua in his career. It's not the biggest fight of his career, but certainly at this point, it's become a situation where it's probably the most important fight of his career, because I think his longevity and his ability to remain to be considered a top heavyweight is pretty much on the line here. And then I know for me, it's kind of harsh criticism. I mean, he lost to Alexander Usyk, who, is among the one or two best heavyweights in the world. And, I thought he was more competitive in the rematch than he was in the first fight. But you know what? You're still in a situation where you lost two in a row. And unfortunately, boxing is a very unforgiving sport and a very unforgiving business. So he's got to get the job done against Franklin. So Franklin is a capable guy. He gave he lost a close decision against Dillian Whyte. Some people could have said it made it went his way. It was close. You probably have reason to argue for how much Whyte is the same as well after the knockout loss to Tyson Fury. But nonetheless, Whyte was able to get the decision against Jermaine Franklin. But Jermaine Franklin, thanks to that performance, is now getting the shot at Joshua. Now, Franklin himself hasn't really been that active. I mean, I think he had a couple of fights last year, and prior to that, he hadn't fought since before the COVID-19 pandemic. So, hasn't been the most active. Gave a good showing, gave a good account of himself against Whyte. But again, the question you have about Whyte is, how much of himself did he have left after the Tyson Fury knockout defeat? But nonetheless, I think he fits the bill as far as a guy who, can show us how much Joshua has left. Joshua's supposed to win the fight if he has anything left. But of course, how he wins the fight is going to be a bit telling. And of course, if Joshua has really fallen off the top, anywhere being near the top of the mountaintop, I mean, Franklin could very well beat him. Now, I don't see that happening, but I am curious to see how Joshua comes back. Because based on the way he comes back, based on the way listen, I don't think he'll let me put it this way. Even if Joshua doesn't deserve a decision, he'll get a decision. But if we see that performance from Anthony Joshua, where he gets a decision he doesn't deserve, I mean, it's really going to be, even look even worse for him. And again, he said that if he doesn't, look good in the fight, he'll retire. He doesn't have to be begged. And I respect that and I honor that. But I think Joshua has been a top heavyweight. I don't think he's always gotten his just due, because, people expect so much out of a guy who's so popular. But I think even if we look back at Anthony Joshua's career, he's given us some fun moments, some good moments, created a lot of hype, created a lot of fanfare. And of course, he won a part of the heavyweight title, so he's got to be given credit. And for me personally, the win over Vladimir Klitschko is the most incredible atmosphere I've ever worked in. That fight at Wembley Stadium on that night, an incredible fight, incredible anticipation for the fight, an incredible fight that lived up to the hype, and then probably the most glorious night of his career, I would say. But he's accomplished a lot nonetheless. Now, after the Usyk fight, Usyk showed a lot of flaws, showed a lot of deficiencies in Joshua's style, even in the rematch where he was able to make some adjustments. But he's going to have to, for me, if he's going to prove himself to be still near the top of the heavyweight division, he's going to have a big performance against Jermaine Franklin. Now, Franklin, like I said, he had a pretty good performance against Dillian Whyte. And so, based on this, he has a little bit of a hustle style to him, to where if Joshua isn't on his P's and Q's, Jermaine Franklin could basically out hustle him in the fight. I don't think Franklin is a threat to knock out Joshua. Of course, in the heavyweight division, anything's possible. But I think, Franklin, if he wants to win the fight and if he really shows up to fight, it's a Joshua where you might have, it's a Joshua where, it could be a Joshua where he's maybe not as motivated as he should be because, it's a lower level of opposition. Of course, I can't see how Joshua wouldn't be motivated with his career on the line. But nonetheless, once you've been in big fights where you've had huge name opponents, now you're fighting this level of opponent, maybe sometimes it's hard to get your mindset in the right place. Especially, like I've said in the past, Joshua's made a lot of money, and so we'll see how much of that mean streak he has left. Because I think Jermaine Franklin understands the opportunity, the magnitude of this opportunity. And he came up just short against Whyte. And if he could topple Joshua, it would really, would open the floodgates as far as the amount of money he's going to be able to make in the future. Even a good performance, honestly, on the part of Franklin. It would be 2 losses in a row for him. But, 2 losses in a row against good fighters where he performed, good fighters with big reputations where he performed well. So I'm going to be looking for the kind of performance Joshua puts in. Obviously, what kind of aggression he has, what kind of mean streak he has, And if he can get a big knockout win, or if he's able to look good in beating Franklin, he could put himself back in the conversation for any of the big fights. And who knows? I think if Joshua wins this fight in impressive fashion, maybe you get the Joshua versus Deontay Wilder fight late. You never know. Because think about it. If he looks good in this fight, where does he go? You going to demand the Tyson Fury fight? Or you going to demand another Usyk fight? You've already seen two. I mean, I think if he looks good in this fight and if he wins this fight, now it's a big if, but if he looks good winning this fight, I think you could have a conversation about the Deontay Wilder fight. It's a fight that everybody has been wanting to see for a long time. People never got it in the prime of their careers, but nonetheless, it's still a fight that has some allure, and some big interest. If Joshua can create that interest with a big win over Jermaine Franklin. Now, something on the rumor mill that I've heard, and again, this is strictly a rumor. I don't know how true it is about Franklin going into this fight. I heard Franklin through the grapevine doesn't intend to walk to the ring unless he is shown the exact paperwork on the deal that Dimitri Salita, his promoter, and Matchroom made on the fight. I think he wants to see the full paperwork. Now, granted, by the rules and by the laws, I mean, then again, I don't know if they have the Ali Act in England. I'm lying. Because if the fight was in the U.S., then he'd have a right to see all the paperwork for the fight. The split, so to speak, between Matchroom and Salita Promotions, Star of David Promotions. But I don't know if in England he gets that privilege or that right, so to speak, to see the paperwork. Now I believe he deserves that right anyway. I believe all fighters do, but I'm hearing, and again, just a rumor, again, it could be maybe not true, but I'm hearing that if he doesn't, he has basically said if he doesn't see that paperwork before the walkout Saturday night, he is not walking to the ring. So that's just something to keep in mind, just in case there's any weird fireworks going on. Again, it could just be a rumor, could be there's no truth to it at all, but I'm just going by what I hear. So I like to bring up the rumors as well, because just in case there's some extra disagreements or some extra stuff that we might not anticipate on Saturday night. You might have heard it here first. So something I'm going to be curious about as well. You hate to see that when there's disagreements over contractual things like this. I think for Franklin, it's probably the biggest payday of his career, but nonetheless, every fighter has the right to see that paperwork and see the split that their promoter is getting. So we'll see. Again, could be just a rumor, but it's one thing I'm definitely curious about going into the fight. Now, we'll see how the fight plays out. How even if Franklin loses, if he keeps his value, because Franklin could technically lose and keep his value just by looking good in a loss, because not a lot is expected of him. And like I said, Joshua could win technically and still keep diminishing in value based on the fact that he could win and maybe not look good. So a lot of things to keep in mind for this fight. I'm definitely curious about it, and I look forward to it. And like I said, I mean, based on the result, who you guys want to see Joshua? Say Joshua ends up looking good. Do you guys want to see him against Fury? Do you guys want to see him against Deontay Wilder? As I said, personally, I want to see him against Wilder if he looks good. But we'll see. And what happens if Jermaine Franklin looks good or even wins? Who will you match him against? Because then a lot of things open up for him as well. Personally, I think a guy like Jermaine Franklin and maybe like a Jarrell Miller will be a fun fight. Personally, I look at Styles and Styles making fights. I think that could be a fun fight too. On another note, Fury and Usyk is not going to happen. There's been other heavyweight news. That's kind of disappointing because it looked like for a while we wouldn't get that fight. It's been some weird mind games. Listen, Fury's a big mind games player, and I give him credit for it to a degree. I think he basically winning the mind games against Wilder really put him in a position to have the advantages going into the ring. But now it's getting weird, I was apt to pick Fury to beat Usyk. He's too big. I think, he's athletic. He's too big. But I don't know, just the way things went in that negotiation, I just get that sort of weird feeling like Usyk was telling the truth, Usyk and his team don't come off as guys who just play mind games, so to speak. They just, they're the kind of guys who, are pretty much all business. A lot of those Eastern European fighters kind of are, it's kind of sort of the mentality and the culture. So, when he says something, I'm kind of more apt to believe it. And then when I saw that video where Fury said, he's not going to do the fight because Usyk asked for a rematch clause, and then Usyk's team came back out and said, what are you talking about? Your team is the one that asked for a rematch clause. That's when it really started getting weird to me. Then when I heard Usyk's team accepted the 70-30 deal, and Fury's team still didn't take it. Now, again, it could be your version of the story against their version of the story, one versus one other side's version of the story, and maybe the other side is lying. But again, just based on the because Fury's sort of like a spitfire, he's pretty random. So you could kind of see him playing that kind of mind game. I've just never seen it in Usyk. I've seen Fury play mind games, obviously, but based on character, what we know of each of the guys' characters, I've never seen those kind of mind games played by Usyk. So I'm more apt to believe Usyk's version and Team Usyk's version of it. So really disappointing because going into it, I would have probably picked Fury to win the fight. But now it's kind of weird. Like, it makes you wonder if even he thinks he's going to win the fight, which, I wouldn't have expected that, So curious about it. I don't wonder where Fury goes next. Usyk has 3 world titles, so he's probably got to make mandatory defenses against somebody at this point because he's got 3 world titles. So I'm curious about that as well. But those are my thoughts on the heavyweight division and this weekend's fight with Anthony Joshua and Jermaine Franklin, and the fallout after Fury versus Usyk undisputed title unification ends up not being made, ends up not happening. I'm Paulie Malignaggi. This is Paulie TV. Let me know your thoughts on that as well, on the Fury Usyk fallout. Let me know who you guys are blaming for not making the fight in the comment section. I'll see you later.